Hello, and welcome back to Think Yourself Healthy podcast. I'm your host, Heather Barbieri. Before we dive into this episode, I just want to remind you that if you take a screenshot that you're listening and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a 15% off discount for the 8-week Retrain Your Brain program. Just take a screenshot and tag me at Heather Barbieri RDN. Thanks for listening, and let's get right to it. Hello, everybody. On today's episode of Think Yourself Healthy, I am so blessed to be in the studio of Mike Rashid King. I am so blessed to be here today to have an opportunity to interview him, kind of pick his brain. My daughter introduced me to him and this really unique thing that he's doing with his business and how he's kind of taking this whole idea of consciousness and melding it with spirituality to build a marketing platform to promote really amazing things out there. So, Mike, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for talking with me. Thanks for having me on.
So tell the audience a little bit about who you are. You are such a complex being.
I think I'm simple. I'm Mike. I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I used to be a boxer, still am, but not actively looking for any fights no more, unless a really good offer comes across my desk. But I'm just enjoying life. I consider myself a conscious capitalist. So, it's about like, it's a huge separation people have from being like conscious or tapping into spirituality and also the material world and capitalism and things like that. You have such stigmas attached to both sides. And it's like, okay, I see nothing wrong with any of them. It's just how it's, a thing is never good or bad. This is how people use it and articulate it. You know what I mean? So, I like to bring it all together. Like money is not a bad thing. I hate when people say, oh, money is the root of evil. I'm like, it's not. Well, you are. It's the person. It's just a tool.
Money doesn't know good or bad.
It's just a tool.
Money just knows who it's open to flow to.
Correct. So, and so many good things are done with these resources, So I am not, I think people tend to like lean on that perspective when they feel like they can't have it. And it's like, this is, your thoughts are powerful. So you telling yourself you can't have it and it's bad and it's evil, you're going to stay away from it, So, it's all about your perspective. If people can understand that like life is literally what you make it, people will have way easier lives,
Right? It's really scary to think that this whole puzzle we're trying to put together in terms of this life experience, this human experience, it's really pretty simple.
It's so simple.
But we humans like to complicate everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, people gotta look at it like this. Like, my son and I was sitting in the backyard one day and we was talking, and we just messed around talking about simulation theory and all of that stuff. And I'm like, well, we are in a somewhat of a simulation, right? I said, essentially we're computers. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, your phone in your hand, that's a computer. I said, tell me the things that make that thing work. Like, what's inside of it that makes it work? So look it up. And it was like the tungsten, the copper, like all of these things. And I'm like, okay, all of those are in the human body.
Yeah.
He's like, really? I said, Google it. Everyone, it showed how much, why it's in the body, all of that stuff, right? I said, okay, now that computer, you're the engineer, you're the programmer of it, right? Like, yeah, you're also the programmer of yourself. Ooh. We're our own engineers, right? So the information that we consume programs us. The conversations we have programs us. The activities we do on a daily basis is part of our programming. It puts together our operating system and how we live our lives, right? So we're literally programming ourselves every moment, So we are the ultimate engineers of our computer, of our design. And, when people really see life like that, they'll see that, that's like really that God energy, that God frequency. Like, we are our own gods.
Absolutely.
People are, and listen, we were talking earlier about like society keeping people at a certain level. And I think that the way that God is taught is also a strategy to keep people stifled from achieving a high level of consciousness.
Absolutely.
Because when you're like, God is more powerful, the most powerful, like, was one being, right? That the story, and I think religion is good, so I'm gonna put that out there. But how things are taken is kind of bad. Like, to think that you're nothing.
Right.
Your life is at the mercy of some guy who's jealous. Like, my God is a jealous God. Like, why? Why should he be jealous? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, all roads lead to hell. So you're always in fear, right? Like, when I was a kid, I had so much anxiety about going to hell.
Same.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, heaven and hell is on earth. Exactly. You make bad decisions, you live in hell. You make good decisions, you have heaven. It's that simple. So, and that's real easy. That's a real simple concept. And to me, it doesn't matter if people believe all of these things are literal or not. Being a good person matters, right, for society. So, I don't know. People can live how they want to live.
Well, first off, I just have to commend you for being able to have this conversation with your son. What a lucky, kid to be able to have this kind of wisdom and code being handed to them at such an early age. The reality is, these are the conversations that we should be empowering our children with, right? Instead of allowing all of these broken systems to, narrate to them what their beliefs and programs are that they're operating from. So I think it's incredible.
I think it's I don't think it's super special of me. It's just that I am aware of things and I share it.
Ultimately, what I'm hearing through this conversation is that you're really laying the roots for the kind of man that he's going to want to show up and be in this world, right? And so I'm curious, from your perspective, as a father, as a man in this time, there's so many challenges right now. And right now, this whole idea of toxic masculinity being such a threat to society, I look at you and I think, oh, well, you are the embodiment of masculinity. And so you are technically considered a threat to society. Right. So how do you cultivate and raise your son to be this healthy masculine in this broken society with so much chaos and just distorted messages that are being thrown at them on the reg?
Right. Well, see, for starters, I don't create everything that I teach him is basically me leading by example, right? It's not that I'm saying, hey, there's no toxic masculinity, yada, yada. It's not that. Because honestly, when I was hearing people talk about this, like, hey, there's an attack on masculinity, I'm like, no, it's not. Like, what are you talking about? But now I see what people are talking about. However, I feel like when you're fully activated in your natural state of being and existence, and for me, I'm a man, so that's being masculine and normal. These things do not affect you, right? There's nothing that can make me not be masculine. Like, it's just a bizarre.
I would challenge you on that.
Go for it. What do you think can make me?
Well, I'm curious. Let me hear your perspective. Let's just address food. Okay. Let's talk about our current food system and what we've seen happen unfold over the last 70 years in the food system. Okay. And how this is potentially playing a role with the modification of our genetics, the modification of the DNA, and most importantly, it definitely interferes with hormone function, endocrine system function, right? So if masculinity is a threat to society, because why? Why is masculinity a threat?
The power structures that exist don't want any competition.
They don't want any competition, right? They want us to be weak servants that are enslaved in consumerism, just consuming.
Well, here's the thing. I understand their position. Because I have to be 100% honest with you. If I was in power, now I'm not saying that I would employ tactics to make my society weak. Not at all. But I totally get why someone in power would do that.
Okay.
Listen, if you have a ruler, and people, they say this, like, I had some guys in here one time, and they were like, you're like a king, like literally a king. I'm like, don't give me that. I can't guarantee that I'll be a righteous ruler.
Okay.
Having that kind of power. None of us know what that feels like.
Right.
Right. I'm sure I would want it to remain in my lineage. You know what I mean? So what if I am a righteous ruler? Who knows if my grandson isn't? Like, so, you know, like the system that we have in America is, to me, is very divine. It's beautiful. The framework of this nation, the Constitution, you know, it was put together at a time when like people that look like me had no rights. We were considered animals. Women had no rights, right? So now people have rights. I mean, listen, I think it's weird, but if a person want to be a different gender, they can. We have that much freedom in this country. I think that's a beautiful thing. And this is a nation of people, not kings. You know what I'm saying? So we are all sovereign if we really embody it. But let's look at, we have a federal and a state government, city government, county government. You know what I mean? The federal government have very little to do with us.
Right.
And people put a lot of, they allow the media and the TV and the politicians to tug at their emotions, but who cares? Who cares who's the president? It doesn't have any effect on me, right?
Right.
So, you know, you have to worry about the constituents of your city. Worry about that, you know, your school district.
Absolutely.
You know, the sheriff in your town, things like that. So the power is dispersed. Hear me out. The power is dispersed, right? It works.
Yeah.
It works. The system works. Now, whether people are succumbing to these modifications of the food, the chemicals in it, or whatever, I have to do more research on that. I am not super versed in that, but I am versed in this. Evolution and our species of human, our brand of human. There's been many species of humans on this planet, but we're here, right?
Right.
We're the only ones that have done the things that we've done on this planet, right? So, and the reason that we're so powerful and so mighty is because, and we weren't like the biggest, strongest,
Right.
right? But we're here because we have the power to adapt, right? And that's what being powerful is all about, is adapting. Now, let's say it's all GMOs and everything's modified, and you know, sugar is affecting the brain, this, that, and the third, right? We adapt to it, you know. Now, if you go to the rainforest, we can't eat any of the fruit there.
Right.
It'll kill our stomachs. And those people can't eat anything here.
Right.
Right? But it's like that because we've adapted to plastic being in our food. I'm not saying this is good, right? However, we've adapted to it to an extent, right? And there's plenty of things that we do to counteract any negative issues with eating processed foods, this, that, and the third. Working out, going to the sauna and sweating. You know, it's so many things, taking supplements. It's so many ways to tip the scale back over.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this up because you are absolutely on point. And then, you know, another thing that I want to also bring up that you mentioned about how, you know, we can't go over to the rainforest and eat the fruit there and vice versa. And a lot of that has to do with the microbiome, the natural bacteria that inhibits our environment, right, in which we are residing within. And unfortunately, here in the U.S., this is probably one of the biggest things working against our society in terms of health and wellness, is that we don't have very diverse diets of natural whole foods that have good sources of that microbiome. We're eating these dead processed foods that lack the nutrients, lack the water, lack the energy, lack the vitality of life, right? And I see this a lot in the environment that I serve, working in mental health, that, you know, a lot of these individuals, they're very much walking around like zombies. And it's has a lot to do with the fact that they're missing these vital nutrients to feed the bacteria that help support the neurotransmitter functioning in their system to keep their mind and body healthy and balanced. So, yeah, I agree. I think that there's a multiple ways that we can address keeping ourselves healthy, but food definitely plays a big role.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree. Our stomach is our first brain.
It is. It is, without a doubt, the first brain.
And it has a lot to do with our mood, you know, our stress levels, you know, all of these things.
Absolutely.
But, you know, there's things that food is just one thing, right? So I eat once a day, right? Every Wednesday I fast for 24 hours. A lot of my friends, we all do it, right? So food is not that big of a deal to me.
I can't wait till we become breatharians.
Oh, okay, that's something. But I eat. I have a different relationship with food than most people.
Okay, tell me more.
It's just a means of energy. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like putting gas in a car.
So you look at it from a nourishing perspective.
This is what I need.
How is this going to fuel this vessel and this consciousness?
That's it, right? And I've done a lot of research. I've been eating once a day for years, right? I stopped for a while, started back, but since I started back in 2017 and haven't looked back, right?
Okay.
And but I did it I had my own little anecdotal reasons back then, but I did research this go around, and it actually supports what I felt, right, and what I thought, and like the science. And you can eat, like, there's different ways, so many different ways to fast, right? There's eat every other day type fasting, right?
Right.
These people can eat every other day, eat trash on the days that they eat, but the fact that they're fasting, they're healthier than people eating clean every day.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So there's autophagy, there's so many systems. The body is such a perfect thing that always wants to be in homeostasis and fix everything, right? Listen, if you get a cut, it just fixes it back. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's so many things that our body does to heal itself, you know, but we got to give it the space to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and knowing that you can have a little wiggle room, and you can know that certain things won't affect you as bad if you're consistently compounding the problem.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. No, I love this perspective. I love this approach, you know, to speak to the point of having one meal a day. I can see how you having one meal a day has allowed for you to really help to expand your ability to approach consciousness. Whenever we're grazing all day long, you know, we're drizzling insulin into the bloodstream, we're storing fat, we're utilizing that energy to break down and metabolize these nutrients. So we don't have the ability to take that energy and use it in other ways, specifically to integrate the left and the right hemisphere of the brain so that we can access that pineal gland and open up that consciousness. So when we are in fasted states, this really helps support our ability to utilize the energy for those consciousness purposes.
100%. And then there's other means of activating that pineal gland, that third eye, that eye of Horus, you know, and it's something I do every day. Is I sit outside after meditation, after I get up, I sit outside in direct sunlight for 10 minutes with no sunglasses. And it's very practical why I do it, right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's practical, but it taps into spirituality and what people consider that, right?
Right.
And it's simply because sunlight hitting the pineal gland stops the production of melatonin.
Right.
Starts the production of tryptophan, which is the precursor to dopamine.
Yep.
Gets us in a good mood, gets our digestive system working properly, and it helps with your sex drive, everything, right?
Absolutely.
So it's sitting outside in the sun.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know.
It also helps with decalcifying that pineal gland.
Yeah, for sure. So, and these are things that anyone can Google and get recommendation by, you know,
Absolutely.
From the scientific community. It's not yet mainstream, right? But it will be.
It's going to be coming.
It will be. Just like meditation will be mainstream. Just like now is mainstream for people to exercise and different diets and things like that. That's mainstream now. So will these things that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we're in the process of, you know, reshaping the paradigm of civilization and our human experience. And we're dropping out systems that aren't working for us effectively to help support our ascension process for planet Earth and us as a civilization. So this is exciting to hear you talking about things like getting up and, you know, having access to the sun first thing in the morning. You're dark skinned. So most dark skinned people don't really think that they have to get a lot of sun, right? But being that you're dark skinned, this puts you in a position where your body has a little more difficulty with synthesizing vitamin D from the sun. So you're going to need a little more exposure, meaning no sunscreen, right? I hope you're going out with no sunscreen.
Nah, no black people wear sunscreen.
Okay, thank God. Thank God. Because ultimately that is suppressing that vitamin D production, which is then going to have some negative consequences with our mental health, our testosterone, all of our, metabolic processes. And so to hear you, this big buff guy, talking about getting out and getting his sunbathing in the morning is awesome, because I think this is something that definitely needs to become more mainstream.
Right, for sure.
So then my question next is, are you doing any of the perineal sunbathing?
No.
I think, is that how they say that word? Perineal?
I'm not.
The butthole? Butthole sunbathing?
No thanks. I'm good on that. No, I'm good. As you get to a certain point, you're like, all right, come on.
Right, like enough is enough.
Yeah.
I'm done with all of the hoax.
I've never even thought to do that. Yeah.
Well, apparently that is becoming the next mainstream thing. Is
That's
the
fine. Not for me.
I believe it's called perineal sunbathing or something of that nature.
I'm
anyway, I'm super.
Not on board. Not on board.
All right, I feel ya.
I don't want to see nobody doing that. I don't want to see. You can do it. I just don't want to see it.
So ultimately, there's a multitude of different things that are interacting with us on a regular basis that are contributing to the elevation of our consciousness. And it really boils down to choice and free will, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going back to that perineal thing.
Okay,
right?
yeah, we can revisit.
So this is a tactic they say to do what?
So apparently with this perineal sunbathing, what it does is it activates the pineal gland within little as 20 seconds of exposure. It has something to
Through your butt.
Yeah, and it has something to do with the connection of the vagus nerve pathway. So we have a bundle of nerves that line from the stem of the brain all the way down to the tailbone. And so all of these nerve endings connect to all of the major organ systems. So apparently 20 seconds of sun exposure first thing in the morning before 10 a.m. when the sun has the strongest vibrational frequency. This can activate something within that nervous system pathway that goes straight to the pineal gland, helping to open it up, decalcify it, and stabilize mood and vitamin D production throughout the day.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's something to it.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was a hoax or a way of trolling people.
It's very possible,
I can't see,
but apparently this goes back to ancient practice.
Like what people?
Thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. And I want to say, I can't, I am not positive of the source, but I want to say that it might have been I can't say because I don't know.
I'm a history buff.
Okay.
Right. It's entertainment for me, learning history. I've seen so many forms of hieroglyphs, impressions, art, like everything. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen it all too, right? Some wild stuff. I've never seen that.
So what I will do for you is I will definitely...
I'll look it up. I'm going to look it up.
Well, I'll send you some research, some validated research studies on the science behind whatever it is that it's supposed to do. But this is apparently a thing, a thing for health, apparently.
That I'll pass on. I don't care what they say, like how great it is, I'll pass. Do you do it?
I have tried it. I'm not going to lie. I was just really curious. I have a rooftop, luckily, where I can get up there and expose myself and not be violated or violate anyone else in any way. And honestly, I think the curiosity I had most importantly was like, how would this feel? How does this feel? It felt really uncomfortable. It was very much out of my comfort zone. This idea of me, just kind of bent over with my butt up to the air.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Let's think about everything that we know of, any kind of tactic that we employ to give ourselves a better life.
Yes.
To optimize life. Does any of it make you uncomfortable like that?
Well, I mean, I guess initially in my journey.
Or do any of it make you feel kind of, because I feel like that would be a humiliating feeling.
So here's the cool thing about what this brought up for me, though, is that why am I feeling humiliated? Why am I feeling ashamed right now?
I can tell you why.
Tell me why.
Because you're exposed in a very vulnerable state. Now, even my dog, when he goes out to take a poop, he's looking back to see if he's safe. Yep. So that's just we're animals like every other animal, and that's just a very compromising position to be in.
It is, right?
And not a safe one.
Yeah.
So that's why one would feel embarrassed,
shameful.
Right.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wouldn't have thought about it from that perspective, from that safety perspective. But I see and feel that very much as I reflect.
Our amygdala is where fear and anxiety is, right? Listen, there's systems of the body that can perceive danger and threat without us being conscious of it.
Yes.
So I'm sure that's some kind of system of like, yo, this is not right. Right?
Yeah.
So that's why that happens. These are things that we don't have to be taught.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many, like, we are antennas of information, of receiving information, just like that fact that I just stated, right?
Yes.
So that tells me I don't have to do any research to know that that's not. I'm not saying that what you didn't read didn't appear to come from a good source, but I cannot accept that is valid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
it just doesn't make sense for the soul. You know what I mean? If you felt any kind of way when you did it, it's not right.
Yeah. No, and there definitely was discomfort.
Yeah.
Definitely discomfort.
Yeah.
So back to this idea of the amygdala and this fear thing, right? So with this whole COVID virus that we've had, the COVID virus has impacted our olfactory center, our senses, our taste and smell in the brain, right?
Some people.
For some.
Yeah.
And the olfactory center is directly attached to the amygdala in the brain. So what we're seeing happen right now is that there is this huge surge of anxiety increase amongst society, and people can't really understand and they can't pinpoint where this anxiety is actually coming from. They're evaluating their life. They're like, things appear really well. But what they're finding is that they either had loss of taste, loss of smell, and as a result of that, the brain is constantly seeking for threats. And because it's lost its sense and the connection to taste and smell, it now is in a heightened state of threat at all time because it can't sense the danger anymore. Right. So it's really interesting to see what's going to continue to play out over, the many years ahead of us as a result of what we as a society, the trauma that we have experienced over the last couple of years.
Right. I know we got to wrap it up, but I say this for those who's experienced that and they have a heightened sense of anxiety, there's some really easy ways to fix that, right? And one is putting yourself in a theta wave state. And how you do that is by mindfulness meditation, right? And this is, once again, they've studied this, they've tested it on many people, and it absolutely works. Like putting yourself on mindfulness meditation, it eases the amygdala. It kind of disarms it, right? It helps us adapt to stress and deal with it better. So does exposure to sauna, like heat shock proteins, but it increases our pain tolerance, right? It increases our stress tolerance, stress resistance, and it makes us not as anxious, not have as much anxiety. So that meditation, music that you like, and also the sauna, those are 3 tactics that you can start retraining your brain and fixing that amygdala, making it calm down. You don't want it gone because you need that to stay safe. Yeah. Because we are animals and people are animals and they do wild things. So, these are 3 little easy things that people can employ every day to help fix that.
I love that. Those are 3 fabulous tips. And that was going to be one of my closing questions to you. So you already beat me to the punch. But tell the listeners, what's Mike up to? How can they find you? How can we vibe?
Yeah, Mike Rashid across all platforms, MikeRashid. I have a podcast as well, pretty big YouTube channel. You can find me everywhere. Just Google Mike Rashid.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to invite me into your beautiful studio here and also just share some insight into your success and what's helped you get to where you're at today with the listeners.
I appreciate you.
And you guys make sure you check him out. He is definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Think Yourself Healthy podcast. Do me a favor, and if you loved this episode, please go leave a review. Reviews help make sure that this content reaches more people so that we can continue to heal as a collective. Remember to take a screenshot that you're listening and tag us on Instagram at Heather Barbieri RDN for a 15% discount on the Retrain Your Brain program. See you next time.